Hi, my name is Gabriella from the University of Reading, and I'm delighted to be chairing today's panel discussion. I would like to welcome you to this Explore Careers panel discussion, one of a series of events being hosted by the IFST as part of this year's Student Career Launchpad season, and taking place only during this week. As you've registered to join this session, you will have already seen other Launchpad activities, which are being provided free to help our brightest young talent make informed choices about their future career in the food sector. Don't forget to attend our other events which are taking place this week. You can find them on the IFST Launchpad webpage. I'm very pleased to introduce my colleagues and panelists who all work in the retail sector area of the food industry and who all have different perspectives of the industry. Between them, they represent a vast amount of experience working in the food sector. We have Krista Rose Mafosa, who is a food technologist at Tesco's, Charlotte Savage, who's a technical manager at Sainsbury's Supermarket, and Rachel Dawes, Senior Food Technologist at Marks & Spencer's. If you'd like to find out more information about our panelists, their details can be found on IFST's Launchpad pages. This is a live discussion during which you're going to hear from one of our panelists about a typical day in their job, and you'll be able to ask all our panelists questions. Please do make the most of this opportunity, and I encourage you to post your questions using the chat function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. You can also upvote other people's questions by clicking the like button next to their question. Firstly, I'd like to introduce our day in the life of the panelist, Rachel Dawes, who's going to describe to you briefly some of the highlights and challenges of her job role. If during her presentation you have a question, please do, as I mentioned previously, post it in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Now over to you, Rachel, for your presentation.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Gabriella. So if I share my screen. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So just to, I guess, say thank you so much to the IFST for having me here today. My name is Rachel Dawes and I'm a senior food technologist working for Marks & Spencer's. And to give you a bit of a background into my career, I started my career back at the University of Reading, where I studied nutrition and food science, and during which time I had an industrial placement year at Mondelez International up in Banbury, where I was a food technologist working in their coffee research and development department. And then after I graduated, I then worked for a small salad grower up in North Yorkshire called Home Harvest Salads for 8 months as their technical and project manager, during which time I was then accepted onto the M&S graduate scheme. So I handed my notice in, went travelling for a few months and then moved down to London and started at M&S. And I've been at M&S now for 7 years, during which time I've worked in a few different categories. So I started in drinks, worked in hospitality, sandwiches, delicatessen, and then I joined the international team about 2.5 years ago. So to give you a bit of, I guess, an idea of what a kind of my typical day will look like, I work within the international side of the business. So for those of you who don't know, M&S have stores all over the world, and we actually operate in 102 different countries, and we have 230 physical food stores in those markets, but we also operate in some markets where we don't have physical food stores, but customers can still buy M&S products online through wholesalers, so in the likes of Australia, New Zealand and America. And a lot of these stores are actually not owned by M&S, but they're run by franchise partners on our behalf. And as a food technologist, I'm responsible for the quality, safety, integrity and legality of the products that we sell and send to these markets. And I guess in terms of sort of my day-to-day role, I think it's fair to say that no 2 days are ever the same, and it's a really, really varied role. But a typical day might include liaising with local authorities. So for example, it might be talking to the authorities in Indonesia about a upcoming legislation and working out what we need to do as M&S to make sure that we are going to comply with that legislation when it becomes live. It could be looking to onboard new local suppliers. And what I mean by that is at the moment we fly a lot of our chilled products out to a lot of our sort of Middle East and Far Eastern markets, purely because of the short shelf life. But we know that because of obviously sustainability, but also cost reasons, this is, we need to move away from doing this. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now is seeing where we can actually source these products more locally. So loose produce is a really good example that we launched recently in our stores in Hong Kong and Singapore, but making sure that actually where we're sourcing from are still meeting those M&S requirements, but again, not flying it from the UK. Or I might be doing some virtual inspections. So all of our international stores have audits, and I might be doing some virtual inspections with those stores and investigating an incident that might have been raised. So it could be around allergen management within the hospitality sector, so within a cafe, or it could be looking at pest control measures as well. And so, like I say, the job is really, really varied, and I've been lucky enough to sort of, travel to all parts of the world with this job. This was a photo taken over in Shanghai, and the variety of the role is something that I really love and enjoy. I actually worked on a flower and plant project while I was out in Shanghai, so again, something really, really different and sort of a change to what I'm used to. But yeah, that's sort of a very quick overview of what I do in my day-to-day role. And I guess some of the sort of key skills and some of the challenges that I sort of face in this role, and I guess some of the key skills that I think you need to have in this retail food technologist role. I think one of the big ones is around organisation and time management. So there's always a lot of things going on, and you need to be able to sort of manage and prioritise your time. Teamwork is another big one. So we work very closely with teams both inside and outside the business. So you need to know how to really sort of collaborate and work together. Problem solving is another huge one. And as technologists, we're often referred to the creative solution providers, because, as you can imagine, there are, many issues that take place. I think the last 2 years is, we've had every issue under the sun thrown at us, with sort of COVID and Brexit, to name a few. But really our role is to take on these challenges and see how we can overcome them, and to make sure that we're going to continue to get that flow of products through to the customer. And another big one is around communication skills and presentation skills. So as with all jobs, being able to communicate in a really clear and succinct manner is essential, and also being able to communicate with people at different levels, both inside and outside of your businesses, is really important. And then finally, just having a real passion. So I think having a real passion for working with people and a real passion for food, I'd say are essential, just because that's what you're going to be doing on a daily basis. So if you are interested in working in retail, I guess my top tip would be just get as much experience as you can in any sector. So whether it's working in an actual store, if it's working for a manufacturer, in any area of the food sector, you can apply it through to a job in retail. So I think never turn down an opportunity, and just get experience wherever you can. And then I guess just a shameless plug really for some of the M&S early careers opportunities that we have. So we run a graduate scheme which starts next September, and we have an industrial placement year, and we also have an 8-week summer internship, and the closing dates are on the screen. But if you type in M&S early careers into Google, then you can find out more detail. But yeah, shameless plug at the end. But yeah, thank you very much. Back to you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Rachel, for such an interesting and engaging presentation. We're now moving on to today's question and answer session, where we are joined by Chris Rose Maposa and Charlotte Savage. Just a reminder, you can submit questions using the question and answer function, which you should be able to see at the bottom of your screen. You may also need to hover over your screen if using a mouse, or touch your screen. You can also upvote other people's questions by clicking the like button next to the question. Moving on to our first question. How did you know what area of the food industry suited you best?
Can I answer? I didn't, to be honest. I just looked at, I think, a few job descriptions when I was going to apply for a placement, and I realized that the things I really liked to do the most sat within like a technical internship. So I ended up applying for a technical placement at Sainsbury's. And when I was in there, it was really just talking to people that did other roles. So I spoke to spec techs, I spoke to people in the micro team, I spoke to the company nutritionists, just to understand what they did a bit more. Because your first job isn't going to be your last job, or your first internship won't be your last piece of experience. I just picked the thing that aligned with what I really liked the most, and then just asked loads of questions, shadowed loads of meetings, just to understand a bit more about other areas and decide whether I wanted to do a bit more of it or actually that's not for me. And that was really helpful for me.
Okay, that's a really great answer. Thank you for that. And moving on to the next question. Would you like to share a highlight of your career so far? This could be for Charlotte, if you'd like to answer.
Yes, great, thank you. So hi everyone, my name's Charlotte Savage. I'm the Category Technical Manager at Sainsbury's looking after bakery and food to go. I would say the highlight of my career was working in a company prior to Sainsbury's where we recruited manufacturers all over the world, similar to Rachel, in terms of manufacturing products for the UK retailers. So that gave me a great opportunity to travel the world, visit different cultures around the world, how different cultures manufacture products, look at all the different techniques, the equipment, be really close to those products all over the world. And then wholly bring that back to the UK and make sure it was to the right standards for the UK retailers.
That sounds really exciting. Thank you for sharing. And would Rachel like to answer, how would you compare working in a large company like Marks and Spencer's to a smaller business to business?
That's a great question. I think they are. I think my personal experience was when you work for a small company, I think you get involved you're thrown into more areas and you get exposed to more roles in a much sort of in a much deeper way. So for instance, when I worked at the salad grower, the office was a sort of static caravan in a car park, and there was 5 of us. And if the logistics manager went on holiday, I would cover for her. So I was, sort of getting up at 5 in the morning and doing sort of, these inbound sheets and creating, logs for the team in the greenhouses. So you really sort of get involved, I think, probably in a deeper way with more roles. And I think when you work for a bigger business, you tend to sort of you're still exposed to other roles in the business, but I think you're sort of really much more closely knitted to the team that you're working with in that immediate group. So if you're working in convenience or bakery, for example, you're very focused in that area. But then saying that, in a bigger business, you have potentially you have more opportunities to work across different functions and gain more experience. But again, that's purely sort of my experience. But I think working in both, to be able to work in both throughout your career, I think will bode you well. I think to get the variety and to be able to experience both sides.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get a diversity of experiences in different companies. Thank you for your answer. Moving on to the next question. This one has 3 upvotes. So what is your favorite part of your job? And anyone can answer this. Maybe Krista Rose, since it hasn't been a while.
Eating. To be honest, yeah, we have some really good submission cycles, and whenever you go through, we'll get concepts kind of briefed to suppliers, and then we'll just go to the office for a day to just sample different products and discuss kind of what we want to go after. Probably say that's number 1, but closely followed by working with suppliers and getting to see different factories, because actually if you work in a factory, that's the only factory you go in. But if you work in a retailer, you get to go to loads of different factories and compare technologies and compare ways of working, and it gives you a really good overview. So yeah, I'd probably say that's the best bit, but I do really like food, so eating.
Oh, it's a good part of the job. Charlotte, would you like to go next?
Yes, so completely agree with Krista Rose. They are true benefits of working in food. Another one that I would add to the list is around problem solving. So we often have a lot of challenges thrown at us, and as a technical group, we are the enablers to get those products onto the shelf and make sure that they are safe for our customers. So there's lots of weird and wonderful things that happen in the industry, and it's really when you get together as a group, as a team, solve those problems and make sure that we've got a safe product on the shelf for the customers, that's really rewarding.
Yeah, that's sounds rewarding. Rachel, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can do. I think it's very linked to what Krista Rose is saying. I think it's just around the variety. I think just being able to start your day and never know what the day will bring. And dealing with different teams, different people from all different backgrounds, and really learning from them as well. I think one thing I love most about this show is that I'm always learning, and I think the minute I feel like I'm starting to sort of, my learning starting to sort of curtail and I feel very complacent, I then will get thrown into something completely different, and that learning journey just continues. And I think that's something that again keeps me motivated. And I think in the food industry you're never short of opportunities to learn. So yeah, that's definitely a big one for me.
It's a really optimistic insight. Yeah, new experiences are always fun. This question also has multiple upvotes. What advice would you give to students applying for industrial placement at somewhere like M&S this year? Oh, but Chris, as you also said you did a placement, I think. So if you want to answer this one as well, maybe it depends who wants to.
I did a retail placement, but I'm sure we all probably did one. I'd probably say to do your research, because every company can offer kind of the same thing on paper, but actually it's the values of the company that are really important, and the people, because you're with those people day in, day out, and they really make it. So yeah, I'd definitely say to look into it and know what you want to go after and what aligns with you. And I guess as a separate note is, do not stress, it will be fine. Someone will give you a placement, because it is quite a stressful time to kind of go to interviews and think, am I a good fit for this? Am I a good fit for that? So I definitely say it works itself out in the end from experience if you relax, and put your best foot forward as well. Because if you are nervous, people will know. But yeah, definitely do research and find values that work with you.
That's reassuring. That's good advice. Rachel, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can do. I think that was great advice, Krista Rose. And I think I love that idea of having that positive mental attitude. I think just being really positive, going into that, applying for that placement. And I think if they're asking you for a cover letter, I think one thing that I probably would advise is make sure that you're really tailoring it to that company, because I know what it can be like if you're applying to lots and lots of different companies. You can, it can be easy just to copy and paste sort of a really sort of core answer. But I think just make sure you're doing a bit of research about that company. Make sure you're really tailoring your application to them. And if you are successful and you do get an interview, I think go to a store. See what they're doing, see what their Christmas campaign looks like, see what new products they've launched, what are they really pushing, how are they communicating with customers, because again, it'll give you more to talk about in that interview, and equally it'll show that business that you're really, really interested in, you've really done your research as well.
It's a good answer. Charlotte, would you like to answer, what is the most important thing on the CV for a recent graduate without any experience?
Yes, and I think everyone should not be too hard on themselves, because everybody is a graduate at some point in their career, and it's not always the case that you will have experience, and everybody recognises that. I think there are lots of opportunities out there where you can build up what you can put on your CV. So the IFST is a great example of that, being involved, being a member, being volunteering for certain aspects that you can share in interviews, because it's really around gaining experience even outside of the industry to come in and answer the questions, because I think it's really important that you've got that diversity of thought, diversity of answers. It doesn't have to be specifically related to the career that you're stepping into.
Thank you for your answer. That's a good answer. Again, all good answers so far. On to the next question. What type of answer did the company expect? I'm sorry, I'm not sure if this is the follow-up question. And what would a graduate scheme consist of? Anyone who did a graduate scheme is open to answer this question?
I actually started one. So yeah, I'm happy to answer this. I'd say graduate schemes actually add a lot of value because if you do go for one, you're able to typically rotate around either different functions of the business, or if you're in kind of a factory-based one, different sites as well. I think they give really good insight into an overall kind of business. And they usually are kind of a fast track to management. So if you start as a graduate, usually on your company's radar, or someone who's going to move through quite quickly, and they do support your development, I think, differently to maybe non-graduate colleagues. And typically from experience in my graduate year, just thinking of my friends, so we went to Uni of Nottingham, we graduated in 2019, and all of the graduate schemes had a higher starting salary than the entry level ones. Not to say that money is important, but obviously if you come from a background where, you know, you have been struggling and you do want to capitalize on your degree, that might be a route for you. But I would say that, you know, they aren't the kind of holy grail, the magic bullet. You can get experience of extreme value in a non-graduate scheme role, but they do offer those things, I think, that stand out in my view.
That's a good answer. Would you like to answer this follow-up question? Do you recommend graduate schemes or entry-level roles?
Do you know what? Overall, I'd still say potentially a graduate scheme, but it really depends on the person. I think if you really like kind of that pressure of being constantly assessed or looked at, and you know, that idea of progressing through very quickly into a management role, then it might be for you. But they usually tend to be offered by larger organizations. So if you want maybe a slightly smaller company and, you know, to work that way, or you want to really hone in on one area and stay there for a couple of years, then I think you might prefer a direct entry. I wouldn't really say it's a one size fits all. I definitely say it depends on the person and what you're after from the role as well, because even within graduate schemes, they'll all be different and they'll all offer different things within them as well. I don't know if you both have anything to add to that.
Yeah, well, I was actually just going to give my perspective because I didn't do a graduate scheme. So I actually came through as an entry-level role. So I started out on my placement year, going straight into a role. And I actually found that it was great for me. Luckily, I love technical, and that's what I went into. And it really worked for me to then stick with technical for the rest of my career, and I won't be turning my back on it because it's I'm very passionate about that. But I do think if you're still unsure on what area of the food industry to get into, then graduate schemes are brilliant for that, because as Krista Rose said, you can explore different categories, different projects, really get into the detail of an organisation and understand how they operate.
That's a great answer. I think both have their own pros and cons. How many months is your industrial place? How many months was your industrial placement for you, Charlotte?
Ours are 12-month placements. Yeah.
Okay. And Rachel and Krista, as you both did placements as well, how many months, someone is asking, was your industrial placement?
Yeah, mine was the same. Yeah, 12 months.
I think they're mostly 12 months.
Yeah, mine was 12 months, and
Mine was
it was at Sainsbury's. Can't believe we didn't meet, Charlotte. Maybe it's because I was in packaged, but it was so good. It was such a good placement year. I can't speak for the M&S because I didn't go there, but I did go to Sainsbury's, and it was a really good placement year. I'd recommend applying because you do get, you know, to see a lot of the business, not just technical. You actually get to understand different roles as well. So if you're not sure, it's still a good one to step into.
Okay, so the session will need to end at 4:35. So sadly, we've run out of time. So we'd like to thank our panelists for agreeing to participate in today's Explore Careers panel discussion and for sharing their views and experiences and answering their questions so well. You've given us all some really valuable insights, and I hope our audience can use when thinking about your first roles in the food sector. Please don't forget that after this 10-minute break, we will have another session on research, academia, and teaching. Before we finish, I would like to thank our corporate sponsors for their financial and in-kind support, which enables us to host these Launchpads and many of IFST's other educational activities. Thank you for attending today's session, and see you all back at 4:35. I wish you all the very best with your future careers.